A very pleasant good afternoon and hearty welcome to everyone for the national webinar on Prospectus in Drug Regulatory Affairs organized by Department of Pharmaceutics, Nirmala College of Pharmacy, Atmakur, Mangalagiri, Andhra Pradesh. I am Sheikh Shahida Sultana, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Pharmaceutics, Nirmala College of Pharmacy. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to the eminent speaker of the national webinar, Mr. Kiran Chinnala, Associate Director in IQVIA, Bangalore, India. It's my immense pleasure to give a brief introduction about our institution. Nirmala College of Pharmacy is established in 2004 and administered by the Catesis Sisters of St. Anne's, Hyderabad, and is a self-financed institution which is affiliated to Acharya Nagarjuna University, Guntur, Andhra Pradesh, and is also approved by the ICTE, Pharmacy Council of India, accredited by NAC, and also approved under UGC 12 and 12B. Our institution had secured All India NIRF ranking, which has been between 76 to 100 since 2016 to 2020. Our institution is providing Diploma in Pharmacy, B.Pharmacy, M.Pharmacy with 3 specializations in Pharmaceutics, Pharmaceutical Analysis, Pharmacology, Pharm.D, Pharm.D Postbaccalaureate, and PhD with various upgrading infrastructure facilities to provide the best quality in pharmacy education. The vision of our institution is shaping the pharmacist with scientific aptitude and social consciousness. I feel honored to invite the Chief Patron of the National Webinar, Reverend Sister K. Sundari, Provincial Superior of CSC Guntur Province, to give a welcome message.
I am extremely happy to know that today the Nirmala College of Pharmacy is conducting a webinar by the Department of Pharmaceutics on Prospectus in Regulatory Affairs. One of the biggest challenges in medicine is incorporation of information technology in our practices, says Samuel Wilson. I congratulate our principal, Dr. Abdul Rahman, for incorporating information technology in learning by inviting all the departments to actively participate in conducting the webinars. I appreciate Sri Kiran Chinnala, Associate Director, IQVIA, Bangalore, for sharing his knowledge. Wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is also love for humanity. I congratulate and welcome the participating delegates for their love for medicine and for their inculcation of love for humanity in participating in such seminars. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sister, for your valuable message. I feel delighted to invite the patron of the national webinar, Reverend Sister P. Alfonsa, Secretary and Correspondent of Nirmala College of Pharmacy, to give a welcome message.
To you all, I am happy to know that today Department of Pharmaceutics of our Nirmala College of Pharmacy, Mangalagiri, organizing a national webinar on advanced topic, Prospectus in Regulatory Affairs. I congratulate the resource person, Sri Kiran Chinnala, Associate Director, IQVIA, Bangalore, for sharing his vast experience and knowledge to the faculty and student delegates. Once again, I congratulate the Department of Pharmaceutics and all those who are joining today's webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, sister, for your valuable message. I feel privileged to invite the convener of the national webinar, Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Professor and Principal of Nirmala College of Pharmacy, to give the objectives about the national webinar.
Respected management, delegates, pharma professionals and mentors, a very good afternoon to all. I am happy to share you that today our Department of Pharmaceutics organizing a national webinar on advanced theme prospects in regulatory affairs. Coming to the key objectives of today's webinar, regulatory affairs is to provide the basis for the assurance of high quality of food products, pharmaceutical products, which can increase consumers' interest for ensuring the efficacy, quality and safety. Regulatory affairs team members manage the process of health agencies such as Food and Drug Administration and ICH, etc. In this connection, I would like to thank Professor Kiran Chinnala, Associate Director, IQVIA, Bangalore, for his kind acceptance to share a vast knowledge in his specialized area. I also appreciate Dr. B.Pharm, Professor and Head, Department of Pharmaceutics, and his dedicated team members for organizing a wonderful webinar. I thank our management members, Reverend Sister Sundari Garu, Provincial Superior and President of the College, Reverend Sister Alfonsa, Secretary and Correspondent, for their constant support in organizing a wonderful programs to the staff, delegates and pharma professionals. I also thank Professor M.V. Nagabhushanam, Professor and Head, Regulatory Affairs, Hindu College of Pharmacy, Andhra Pradesh, for his consent to chair the session. I would like to thank all the participants, pharma professionals and well-wishers. Thank you one and all. God bless you.
Thank you, sir, for giving the objectives about the national webinar. It's my immense pleasure to invite the organizing secretary of the national webinar, Dr. Pharm B, Professor and Head of the Department of Pharmaceutics, Nirmala College of Pharmacy, to introduce the chairperson of today's national webinar.
Good afternoon, one and all. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. M.V. Nagabhushanam, chairperson for the today's webinar. Dr. M.V. Nagabhushanam has completed both B.Pharm and M.Pharm from the Birla Institute of Technology Sciences. Sir has completed PhD from the Acharya Nagarjuna University, Guntur. Sir also completed MBA in Marketing from CSM Institute of Graduate Studies, Canada. Sir is having 24 years of experience in the teaching and industry. He was the former principal for the Hindu College of Pharmacy, Guntur. Present, Sir is working as a professor and HOD for the Pharmaceutical Regulatory Affairs Department at Hindu College of Pharmacy, Guntur. Sir has published 90 articles in the scientific citation journals. Sir is a recognized research supervisor for the PhD scholars for the Acharya Nagarjuna University, Guntur, Krishna University, Machilipatnam, JNTU, Kakinada. 3 students got awarded in PhD under the guidance of Dr. M.V. Nagabhushanam. So present, Sir is guiding 9 students for the PhD scholars. Now I will hand over the sessions to the Dr. M.V. Nagabhushanam to introduce the resource person for the today's webinar. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all. I am Professor M.V. Nagabhushanam, HOD and Professor of Department of Pharmaceutical Regulatory Affairs, Hindu College of Pharmacy. It is my pleasure to act as a chairperson for this national webinar that is organized by the Department of Pharmaceutics, Nirmala College of Pharmacy, Mangalagiri, on the topic that is prospects in regulatory affairs. For this, I welcome Sri Kiran Chinnala Garu, who is going to be the resource person for today's session, who is going to deliver his experience and knowledge on pharmaceutical regulatory affairs out of his 13 years of experience working in various national and multinational pharma companies in both pharmacovigilance and Pharmaceutical Regulatory Affairs departments. Sir is an postgraduate in M.Pharm Pharmacology and Toxicology from JSS College of Pharmacy, Ooty, from Dr. M.G.R. Medical University, Tamil Nadu. In 2008, Sir has completed his M.Pharm, and in 2006, Sir has completed his Bachelor of Pharmacy from Sri Ramachandra Medical University, Tamil Nadu. And out of his 13 years of experience in regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance, he offered his services to Novartis, Amgen, MSD, and other service providers such as ICON, IQVIA, Fryer, etc. And Sir has played various roles for drug safety as a drug safety specialist and principal regulatory specialist, and he is an expert in global labeling and lead project manager. And Sir is also demonstrated his excellence in label generations and label lifecycle management, regulatory intelligence, and also he used to submit these labelings that were prepared for regulatory clearances, and by playing a very key role in regulatory transformation and digitalization by acting as SME for tool development in labeling, regulatory intelligence, etc. And Sir is having a strategic labeling initiative and also projects for development and approved pharmaceutical drug products. And he executed several labeling processes as well as took initiation for the improvement of labeling for pharmaceutical formulations. And his areas of expertise include a well-written labeling documents and safety documents and safety summaries Sir used to prepare for regulatory submissions. And he is skilled in reviewing of medical as well as scientific literatures and updation of safety as well as risk management plans, and expert in development of national as well as regional product labels by collaborating with the regulatory agencies and the teams and ensuring the compliance that are applicable for various regulatory bodies in various countries. And he is strategized, planned and coordinated in post-marketing surveillance studies and approval process for variations and renewals also. And he has experience in handling of a wide range of products, pharmaceutical products, and implemented many more such labeling changes for their regulatory expectations, and negotiating with health authorities to meet these regulatory requirements and also safety related queries. Sir handles, and his therapeutic areas as far as his competency and expertise is concerned, he is an expert in oncology related products and immuno-oncology and anti-infective products, cardiovascular related drugs, immunosuppressants, neurology, and also over-the-counter drugs, etc. So with his vast experience in various areas and various companies, I am sure that because of his more than 1.5 decades of experience in labeling and other regulatory areas, with his knowledge sharing, all the participants of this webinar will get immensely benefited. And I thank the chairman and the secretary and correspondent and other patrons and the principal of Nirmala College of Pharmacy for giving me this opportunity. I welcome the Kiran Chinnala as well as all the participants for this session. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Hi everyone, I am Kiran Chinnala. I'm a seasoned regulatory affairs professional and I've been in industry since about 13 years. I am a pharmacist by qualification. I've done my master's in pharmacy pharmacology. I've worked for both service providers as well as pharmaceutical companies, service providers like ICON Clinical Research and IQVIA, and pharmaceutical companies like Novartis and Astellas. Currently, I'm associated with IQVIA as Associate Director, Regulatory Affairs. I am taking care of Labeling Center of Excellence, which is one of the integral function within Regulatory Affairs. Today, I'm pleased to talk to you on the prospects of Regulatory Affairs. Before that, I would like to thank Nirmala College of Pharmacy for giving me this wonderful opportunity to take you through what prospects you can find after your academics within a regulatory affairs function. So before I move into the prospects and different roles and functions within regulatory affairs, I would like to take you through what is regulatory affairs. Of course, you could have learned in your academics about regulatory affairs, but from corporate perspective or from a company perspective, I would like to explain what is regulatory affairs. So the basics, regulatory affairs is a function which involves different experts belonging to sub-functions like clinical, preclinical, and medical affairs, along with regulatory strategists, and there are multiple coordinators across the globe and the region. So regulatory affairs as a science is developed to ensure that the guidances or regulations which are rolled out by each of the regulators or countries are properly followed. This is basically to ensure that the safety and well-being of the patients are taken care as per the country specific requirement. For example, United States may have certain stringent regulations to be followed for a pharmaceutical company to get an approval for the drug, not even an approval, even for the company to conduct their clinical trials, right from filing the pre-IND meetings towards filing the actual IND submission, down towards progressing from each phase of the clinical trial and further getting an approval for the new drug application and ensuring that the post-approval commitments and maintenance activities are run smoothly. So this is an overall overview of how a regulatory affairs professional works, right from the early stages of the drug development towards the maintenance phase of a drug, that is after getting an approval from a regulator. So as I mentioned, each country would have their own regulations, like US and Europe have more stringent regulations in screening through the drug development process, ensuring that the safety and efficacy or the benefit risk balance of a drug is appropriately maintained. So likewise, other countries around the world, apart from the US and Europe, for example, Canada, South Africa, Australia, also have their own set of regulations. But earlier, a few decades back, the regulations were quite diverse, which means that each country used to have their own set of regulations. But later, when the International Conference for Harmonization is formed, that's the ICH, that's where there is a lot of effort that has been put by all these regulators around the globe, especially the tri-party, the US, Europe, and the Japanese regulatory authorities. So ICH basically is the crux of what regulations or what guidances that has to be followed by each company for getting an approval for a drug. So the primary aspect is, you need to clearly differentiate the difference between a regulation and a guidance. Regulations, of course, are mandates which has to be followed by default, and there's no exception for it. But guidances are good to follow instructions which can be adopted during the code and conduct of the clinical trial or maintenance of a drug post-approval. So regulatory affairs as a function takes care of all these aspects, right from the early stages of clinical development, right from the IND stages, even before IND, that is the pre-IND meetings or negotiations that happen with the regulators, followed by getting approval for IND and then progressing it further at each phases of clinical development until a new drug application is filed and approval is again perceived by the pharmaceutical companies. So there's a lot of effort that goes in. So where exactly regulatory affairs function plays a role, ensuring that the maybe pre-IND meetings are conducted in line with the regulator's expectation, which means that there are certain regulations that are laid down at a country level to ensure that the overall conduct of clinical trial happens in an ethical way, and the documentation required for a health authority to understand the molecule. For example, there would be early stages of information which would be derived from the I would say the animal testing, that is the preclinical stages, wherein acute toxicity, mutagenicity, carcinogenicity, repeated dose toxicity, all these aspects were clearly studied, along with the efficacy of a drug for a particular ailment or to cure a particular ailment. So in short, you can call it as what this drug is indicated for and how safe is it in the preclinical stages. So right from there, regulatory affairs personnel need to analyze whether the preclinical studies are done in line with the expectations by each of the regulators, and also the guidance which is rolled out by harmonization parties like ICH. So right from these preclinical stages and getting an approval from the for the IND, that is investigational new drug application, that's where the pre-IND meetings are conducted with the regulators to ensure that there is an appropriate discussion that happens and an agreement with the regulator that pharmaceutical company met all their expectations and they're ready to conduct clinical trial in line with the ethical requirements within the particular country. After that, right at each phase of the maybe clinical development, you can call it as phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3, regulatory affairs personnel ensures that the investigation brochure is properly updated and ever evolving safety and efficacy information is properly captured within the investigation brochure and is appropriately submitted to the regulator or maybe the health authority. And after the clinical development, after successfully proving the benefit-risk balance of a drug or a product, now the regulatory affairs personnel need to ensure that all the documentation that are developed by the entire effort of the clinical development, which typically takes about 16 years, unless it's a fast-track process. And there are a lot of documentation that are developed to ensure that the clinical trial is conducted in an ethical way and also not compromising on the quality, safety and efficacy of a drug. This is what ICH also talks about, and there are certain guidelines which are rolled out by ICH around these topics. So talking about quality, what quality parameters that are really need to be ensured for getting a go-ahead from the regulators? So the formulation, whether the formulation is palatable or what kind of parameters that are used to ensure that the formulation is appropriately made as per the expected quality, what kind of machinery are used to ensure that the drug is developed in an appropriate way, whether it can be a sterile formulation or a non-sterile formulation. Apart from this, there are certain aspects of the chemistry behind the molecule that also has to be clearly relooked into. First, talking about the drug substance and drug product. Drug substance is nothing but the active pharmaceutical ingredient which is there in the product, and the drug product is nothing but a combination of excipients along with the active ingredient. Maybe you could have learned this well in your academics. And also ensuring that the drug is stable. When I say stable, across different climatic conditions, depending on the intended country where you wanted to get it registered, and ensuring that all sterile practices have been maintained during the manufacturing as per the good manufacturing processes. And apart from that, there are also certain certification that has to be procured to ensure or to give an assurance to the regulator that maybe a particular excipient is from bovine origin, for example. When I mean bovine origin, from animal origin, there are certain certifications like TSC, that is transmissible spongiform encephalopathy certification, which is ensuring that there are no suspected transmission of infectious agents through that excipient which is derived from the animal source. So there are certificates like TSC and BSc that has to be also be put together, of course, through a legal way, and everything goes into the submission. So this is the quality part of it. So there are a lot of aspects within each of these quality aspects, that is the substance and the product related. On the other hand, you need to ensure that the efficacy is appropriately being portrayed. So you need to portray the clinical trial results, maybe in the form of clinical efficacy reports, or I'm sorry, it's clinical reports. Basically, you can call it as maybe an integrated efficacy report, or maybe an integrated safety report. So all these are pretty much important. That's where regulatory affairs person need to ensure that these documents are in line with the expectations by the regulator. So talking about these documents, right at the I would say the NDA filing, regulatory affairs functions or maybe in a personnel need to coordinate with different functions, as I mentioned, maybe clinical, preclinical, medical affairs, the project management team, the investigator. There are a lot of individuals wherein the regulatory affairs person need to coordinate to ensure that the documentation is in line with the expectation. And the next aspect wherein this regulatory affairs person would take care is ensuring that all this documentation are structured in line with the guidances and the regulations in that particular country. So generally these days there's a format that is used that's called as common technical dossier format. There are paper formats of it, there are electronic formats of it. And basically now the trend is for the electronic common technical documentation, which has a structure to it. You would have module 1 and you would have module 2, module 3, 4 and 5. So what are these modules? These modules are nothing but a placeholders wherein you try to put in relevant documentation regarding quality, safety and efficacy. So let's talk about module 1. Module 1 is nothing but administrative information which can be put together. If I'm going to file a product within United States, so there are certain requirements that the filing, the kind of application, the route which has been chosen by the regulatory affairs person or a strategist would be clearly documented, along with the labeling, that is prescriber's information, patient information leaflet. The artwork, mock-ups and specimens are also included in module 1. Along with that, a standard pharmacovigilance plan which is followed to ensure that the safety and efficacy of a drug is being continuously monitored throughout the existence of a product, which means that throughout the life cycle. And coming to module 2 is nothing but which talks about overviews of efficacy, overviews of non-clinical aspects and clinical aspects. So basically module 2 talks about summaries and overviews of clinical, quality and non-clinical. So module 3 is all about formulation and the standards that are followed, the analytical methodologies, the kind of analysis a drug product and also a substance undergo. Everything would be put as the substance parameters and product parameters separately, along with all good manufacturing requirements and certifications. Like for example, you would have certification for stability, ensuring that the product is stable at all climatic zones or countries where the product is intended to be registered. So that's about module 3. Module 4 talks about the safety parameters or the studies which are done in the animals, particularly talking about the toxicity parameters, repeated dose toxicity, acute toxicity, chronic toxicity, carcinogenicity, etc. And ensuring that all these requirements, especially for the safety aspect of a drug which is elicited as an end result of the drug being tested in animals. And the fifth one, the module 5, is about the clinical aspects. The entire documentation which is derived at each phase of the clinical development, right from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, is being put together. So overall, this ECTD documentation or maybe the common technical documentation is put together. So it's represented as a triangle by the ICH, wherein you will have a lot of documentation at the bottom, that is for the clinical module 5, and thereon little bit less documentation when compared to clinical, that is for module 4, and then you would have all your quality parameters for the substance and product mentioned in module 3, and overviews of all these three, that is module 5, 4 and 3 are put together in module 2, and thereon added up with country specific requirements, that is module 1. So basically a regulatory affairs personnel is involved in strategizing how these documents should be put together and how they should be represented as per the country specific requirement, and also ensuring that these are appropriately being submitted to the health authority. And post the drug application, health authority of course would scrutinize the dossier, go through the entire lot of all this documentation, and then they would come up with few questions or clarifications. That's where regulatory affairs personnel also plays an important role, ensuring that he or she coordinates between different functions. As I've mentioned, the wide gamut of functions which are available in the pharmaceutical industry, who does their own role to ensure that the documentation is written and is appropriately being represented. So all these documents would be scrutinized by a regulatory affairs person. He would also interact with all these functional colleagues to ensure that an appropriate response goes back to the health authority. So the major responsibility of regulatory affairs function or maybe a person or a personnel is to ensure that there is an approval that comes through as desired by the pharmaceutical company as earliest as possible. So there's a lot of planning that is required. There's a lot of scrutiny that is required by the regulatory affairs personnel. Usually regulatory affairs personnel is considered as jack of all trades. You need to have clinical knowledge, you need to have safety knowledge, you need to have quality knowledge to ensure that all this documentation who are written by each of those functions are appropriately being written and of course represented as per the country specific requirement. So this is what a regulatory affairs person does on a day-to-day basis, but not to worry, all these activities are not done by one person. Within regulatory affairs, there are sub-functions who take care or own each of those documentation. For example, there are regulatory affairs professional or experts who are skilled in reviewing the clinical aspects of a dossier, particularly talking about all the clinical trial requirements, ensuring that the protocol is being appropriately put, ensuring that the investigational brochure is being appropriately updated at each phase of clinical trial. And thereon, there are different functions or sub-functions within regulatory affairs who are specialized in ensuring that the quality related aspects are appropriately being scrutinized and documented. So this function is called as CMC, Chemistry, Manufacturing and Control, wherein they take care of this drug product and drug substance requirement along with the GMP requirements, which includes the machinery used for manufacturing, the formulation, the kind of analytical methodologies that are used to ensure the purity of a particular substance or a product. And there are other functions. For example, I belong to a function called as labeling. So label is a document which falls under module 1, which talks about the overall safety, efficacy and quality without disclosing the confidential aspects like what kind of methodology is used, what kind of clinical studies are done, whether it is randomized, double-blinded and so on. So these information would be appropriately transferred to the labels, ensuring that the prescriber who would prescribe the drug understands what the drug is used for, whether it is contraindicated for certain maybe conditions, whether there's a warning or a precaution that has to be followed, how the drug should be titrated if at all it is an sterile formulation for IV use or maybe for intramuscular use, for example. So all these information are put together in a label, and there are specialized people who authors the content of a label by by reading through all this clinical, non-clinical and quality documentation. So basically I belong to the labeling function within regulatory affairs. So overall, if I have to look at entire gamut of regulatory affairs, as I've said, there are sub-functions within it. There are people who are skilled in reviewing the quality aspects. For example, you may be belonging to pharmaceutics domain, or you've done your master's in pharmaceutics, or maybe medicinal chemistry, or maybe phytochemistry. If you're interested towards these aspects within the pharmaceutical domain, I would suggest you should focus trying within the CMC function, the chemistry, manufacturing and control function within regulatory affairs. And there are people who work at a global level. When I say global level, not working on specific country or not working at a specific manufacturing site. On the other hand, there are people who work at a local site or a manufacturing unit. For example, they take care of a DMF filing, drug master file, which is again submitted at different intervals depending on the country or the geographical region, which includes all these parameters like stability and the purity of a drug or a product. On the other hand, if you are interested on the clinical aspects, wherein you are interested to know the efficacy of a drug, how safe is the drug, whether there is a relationship between an adverse event which occurs after a drug administration versus the mechanism of a drug, and whether that is being expressed earlier in the clinical trial. So if you are interested in the pharmacology aspects or the clinical pharmacy aspects of the pharmaceutical domain, I would suggest that you should try for the labeling function, which I am working for, or you should also work for a domain which is focused particularly on reviewing the regulatory writing aspect, maybe writing the module 4 and module 5 aspects, and also ensuring that those are appropriately been put. So in total, you have chemistry, manufacturing and control, you have a labeling function, and you also have a clinical function who does the regulatory writing part, especially for module 4 and module 5. So there are multiple roles within regulatory affairs. You may aspire to be a global regulatory lead, wherein, of course, all the regulatory affairs personnel are expected to be jack of all trades, which means that you need to have capability to analyze all this documentation, whether it is quality, safety or efficacy documentation. So overall, there's a lot of scope within regulatory affairs. There are a lot of companies who are looking for new talent right from the academics, again based on their skill set in analyzing each of these aspects which I've just explained. So you can be a regulatory lead, you can be a regulatory strategist, wherein you have to do a lot of analysis of the guidances which are rolled out by each of these health authorities or countries. And you can also be a coordinator if you are strong in planning, organizing, although you have very limited knowledge on all these aspects, but it is must that you need to have knowledge on all this aspect. It can be more or limited. You can aspire to be a regulatory coordinator. And like me, I'm interested in pharmacology and toxicology. So I took up the role or roles in clinical, and thereon I moved to the labeling function within regulatory affairs. So there are different roles who cater their expertise right from the early stages of clinical development towards the late stages of clinical development, wherein you get an approval for a drug and then the post-approval maintenance. So most of the junk of work which is done within India is more focused on the downstream activities, particularly when it comes to the post-approval maintenance and commitments, wherein you need to constantly submit an annual report talking about the stability parameters, of course the overall quality parameters, safety and efficacy parameters, ensuring that the benefit risk balance of a drug is same as it is expected or maybe expressed during the clinical development, and it is carried out throughout the late stages of clinical development further towards the post-approval phases, that is the maintenance phases. So with that, maybe this talk had provided you a little bit of insight of regulatory affairs as a function, and based on the academic interest within each of you as an individual, you can choose to be part of different functions within regulatory affairs, as I've explained. But it's also important that you need to have knowledge on each aspect. You may be a master in something, but it is expected that you need not be a master in all the aspects, but you need to have a necessary skill set to understand, for example, what is a product? A product is nothing but it should have a formulation, it should have an active ingredient, of course, and it should have the excipients to form a formulation, and it should have a strength, it should have a route of administration, and based on these parameters, you would choose maybe what route this drug should be administered, what indication this drug is used for, okay, and then further going into the clinical aspects, further going into the quality aspects of substance and product. So basically, you need to have these analytical skills to understand all aspects of the pharmaceutical drug development and post-approval maintenance aspects, so that you can be a better regulatory affairs professional. I hope this was helpful to you. Thanks for listening to this talk. I hope this would help you to find the right opportunity in your career. All the best. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, S. Swati, working as Associate Professor in Nirmala College of Pharmacy. Firstly, I would like to thank today's resource person, Mr. Kiran Chinnala garu, for sharing his valuable information regarding regulatory affairs. Today, we are having question and answer session also. So, we are gathered a few questions regarding presentation as per the discussion. Coming to the question 1, what is regulatory publishing? To aspire career in publishing, do I need to have software knowledge?
So regulatory publishing is one of the sub-function within regulatory affairs. Basically, they take care of formatting of a document and also ensuring that appropriate tags are being maintained so that electronic submission of the documents happens seamlessly. So there are certain kind of norms that has to be followed for each country requirement so that the gateway does not reject the submission. That's where publisher plays an important role. It's not essential to have a software knowledge to aspire a role in regulatory publishing, but it's good to have.
Question number 2. Do I need to do Masters in Regulatory Affairs to get a job in Regulatory Affairs?
It's not required. As I've said, regulatory affairs have different sub-functions like chemistry, manufacturing and control, labeling, and the clinical part of regulatory affairs. Basically, you can call it as a regulatory writing. So it's essential that you have a strong knowledge in each of those domains to aspire a job in the sub-function. But it's not always essential to have a master's in regulatory affairs to have a job in either global or local regulatory affairs.
Question number 3. Are there any
cost and some are free as well. You can find a course by Harvard University, which is there, I think, in the Udemy learning website, and there are a few courses in Coursera as well. Apart from this, there is another online platform called as RAPS, Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, but you can start reading material there, and of course you can read material which is publicly available in the ICH website as well. But for aspiring to be a RAPS or RAC professional, Regulatory Affairs certification, you need to have at least 2 to 3 years of working experience in regulatory affairs domain.
Lastly, question number 4. Which companies usually have regulatory affairs teams and opportunities?
So most of the pharmaceutical companies, they have a separate team, either called as Global Regulatory Affairs or Local Regulatory Affairs. So you can try for jobs in companies like Novartis, GSK, Roche, and there are multiple companies who have their presence in South Indian cities. So you can apply for any role in that. And apart from that, there are service providers like I am working for. IQVIA do have regulatory affairs team. Likewise, some other service providers also have the teams. So you can apply for them through their websites, or you can reach out to me or any of your network who already is working in regulatory affairs. Thank you.
Good evening everyone. On behalf of our Nirmala College of Pharmacy, I take this opportunity to propose my vote of thanks to those who contribute this webinar. At first, I would like to thank our today's resource person, Mr. Kiran Chinnala, Associate Director, IQVIA Bangalore, for his wonderful speech about prospects in regulatory affairs and also sharing his valuable experience with us. We are also thankful to our Chief Patron of today's webinar, Reverend Sister K. Sundari Garu, Provincial Superior of Guntur Province, for enlightening us with her knowledge and presence. I also thank our Secretary and Correspondent, Reverend Sister P. Alfonsa Garu, for her motivational and inspirational thoughts. I also extend my thanks to convener of today's webinar, Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Professor and Principal of Nirmala College of Pharmacy, for his enlightening support. I would like to thank Dr. M.V. Nagabhushanam, Professor and Head of the Department of Regulatory Affairs of Hindu College of Pharmacy, as the chairperson of today's webinar. A special thanks to the Organizing Secretary, Dr. B. Bamul Reddy, Professor and Head of the Department of Pharmaceutics, for his unflinching support. My deep thanks to all the Organizing Committee members for their support and coordination. Lastly, I would like to thank all the delegates for the active participation and making the webinar a grand success. Thank you.